Hello and welcome. Tonight, or whenever you've chosen to press play, I invite you into a journey that may seem quiet at first, even unremarkable. But as the minutes pass and the ideas begin to build, you may come to realize this is no ordinary self-help book. This is a book about invisible forces. Forces so small, so seemingly trivial, they often pass beneath our awareness, yet they shape everything: our identity, our days, our future. This is Atomic Habits, written by James Clear, a thinker, writer, and strategist whose life was quietly transformed not by grand resolutions, but by a slow, intentional accumulation of effort, by habits. And that's the journey we're beginning together. Now, imagine for a moment that you're watching a block of ice. It's been sitting in a freezing room. Temperature is slowly rising. Still, nothing happens. 25 degrees, 26, 27, still nothing. 29, 30, and then 32. Suddenly, a drop of water appears, not because of that moment alone, but because of all the silent effort that came before it. That's the power of compound growth, and that's the philosophy behind Atomic Habits. What is an atomic habit? The word atomic might sound explosive, but that's not the meaning we're after here. Think about atoms, the smallest possible unit of matter, tiny, foundational. An atomic habit, then, is a small behavior, a daily decision that may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time becomes the building block of a new identity. This book is not about massive overnight transformation. It's not about motivation hacks or 5 a.m. routines. It's about changing who you believe you are, one small action at a time. James Clear writes, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." And that idea is quietly revolutionary, because we've been told that setting big goals is what leads to success. But if systems don't support that goal, you fall every time. The goal to write a novel means nothing without the daily habit of writing. Dream of running a marathon fades fast if the system encourages comfort, not discipline. This book isn't about doing more, it's about doing better, smaller, wiser, smarter. And that's where James Clear's story begins, a story of recovery and revelation. Years before he became a world-renowned author, James Clear was just a teenager. He was standing on a baseball field like he had hundreds of times before, but one swing changed everything. A bat slipping from a teammate's hand struck him directly in the face. The damage was catastrophic: shattered bones, a broken nose, dislodged eyes, a coma, and long months of painful recovery. His dreams of becoming a pro athlete gone, his future uncertain. But in that moment of devastation, something surprising took root. James began to rebuild, not just his body, but his life, through tiny, intentional habits. He didn't set massive goals. He didn't try to reclaim everything at once. He simply focused on showing up consistently, training a little each day, studying, reading, sleeping early, practicing self-control, slowly creating order out of chaos. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't fast, but it worked. Years later, that quiet dedication would form the basis of a powerful insight. Small habits, when repeated consistently, compound into identity. He became the type of person who was disciplined, focused, resilient, not because he willed himself to be, but because his systems, his habits, supported that version of himself. The 4 laws of behavior change in Atomic Habits. Clear distills the psychology of behavior into a clear, practical framework. This is the heart of the book, the 4 laws of behavior change. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. These laws map directly to how habits are formed in the brain, through cues, cravings, responses, and rewards. And by understanding them, you can start reshaping your environment, your routines, and your identity. For example, want to read more? Leave one on your pillow every morning. Want to enjoy working out? Pair it with music you love. Want to eat healthier? Prep meals ahead. Want to stay consistent? Track it with a calendar streak. Simple, yes, but powerful. And this framework works in reverse, too. If you want to break a bad habit, invert each law. Make it invisible. Make it unattractive. Make it difficult. Make it unsatisfying. What you can expect from this journey. As we walk through this book, chapter by chapter, you'll notice something. We're not rushing. This isn't a quick fix. This is a journey of understanding. In each chapter, we'll explore the psychology, stories, and strategies behind real behavior change. You'll meet characters from history, sports, science, and everyday life who use tiny atomic habits to shift the course of their lives. You'll learn about the science of dopamine, the role of environment, and how habits are tied to your sense of identity. Most importantly, you'll begin to see how small decisions can shape who you are becoming. Because in the end, Atomic Habits is not a book about productivity. It's a book about possibility. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't just hope for change, but lives it, one small, deliberate step at a time. So take a deep breath. Let go of the pressure to fix everything, and come with me as we explore a quieter path to greatness. One habit, one choice, one day at a time. Welcome to Atomic Habits.
Chapter 1. The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt frustrated about your progress? You were trying to build a new habit, maybe working out, writing more, saving money, and despite your consistent efforts, it felt like nothing was changing. You were showing up and doing the work, but still no results. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. James Clear opens Atomic Habits with a powerful truth that most people don't want to hear, but absolutely need to understand. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. That idea is the heartbeat of Chapter 1. It's the reason this book exists. Once you fully grasp it, you'll stop chasing instant breakthroughs. Instead, begin building quiet revolutions. To make this idea stick, Clear uses a brilliant metaphor, the ice cube. Imagine a room chilled to 25 degrees Fahrenheit. There's an ice cube sitting on a table. The temperature begins to rise. 26, 27, 28, 10. Still nothing happens. The ice remains frozen. 29, 30, and even 31, there's no change. At 32, the ice starts to melt. The shift wasn't magical or sudden. It was the result of all the degrees that came before. That's how habits work. Your small actions might seem pointless or invisible, but they aren't wasted. They're stored energy, a series of quiet votes cast for the person you want to become. Eventually, if you stay consistent, the breakthrough happens. This process is what Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. It's that long, invisible stretch between effort and results, the valley where most people give up. You might go to the gym for a month and see no difference. You journal or meditate and still feel anxious. You write daily and your work still feels awkward, so you quit. Not because the method failed, but because you gave up too early, during the phase where progress was silently building beneath the surface. Clear reminds us, when you finally break through the plateau of latent potential, people will call it an overnight success. But you know it's the result of all those quiet days you showed up, when it didn't seem to matter. That's why this chapter isn't motivational fluff, it's a quiet awakening. Here's another surprising insight. Goals don't work the way we think they do. Everyone wants to succeed. The athlete wants gold. The entrepreneur wants a thriving business. The writer wants to publish a bestseller. The student wants top grades. Goals are universal, but results rare. Why? Because goals don't determine successes. Systems do. James Clear writes, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." It's a simple but profound distinction. Let's unpack that. A goal is the outcome you want. A system is the set of habits and processes that lead to that result. If you're a runner, your goal might be to run a marathon. Your system is your training schedule. If you're a musician, your goal is to master an instrument. Your system is your daily practice. Want to be more present with family? The system could be your phone habits or how you block your time. The truth is, goals can actually get in the way. Why? Because winners and losers often have the same goals. What separates them is the system. Also, achieving a goal is just a temporary change. For example, losing 20 pounds means nothing if your system leads you to gain it back. Goals restrict happiness. We tell ourselves, once I achieve this, then I'll be happy. But if we embrace systems, we can find joy in the process. Most importantly, goals are at odds with long-term growth. Once the goal is achieved, what keeps you going? Without systems, progress collapses. That's why Clear encourages us to stop obsessing over results and start falling in love with the process. Now we arrive at one of the most powerful ideas in the entire book. The real purpose of habits is identity change. Habits aren't about what you achieve, they're about who you become. Think about this. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Wake up early, it's a vote for being disciplined. Read daily. Vote for being a lifelong learner. Leave your phone during dinner. A vote for being present with loved ones. This is how identities are shaped, not through a grand transformation, but through thousands of small, silent votes that accumulate over time. Clear also emphasizes that habit change isn't about motivation, it's about mechanics. It's your environment, your triggers, your friction, your routines. According to behavioral psychology, habits follow a four-step loop: cue, craving, response, and reward. In later chapters, Clear dives deeper into how we can design each step. But for now, it's enough to know this: habits are not destiny, they're designable. To end the chapter, Clear returns to the central theme: why small changes matter so much. A single tiny habit may seem meaningless in the moment, but repeated day after day, week after week, it becomes powerful. Imagine improving by just 1% each day. Over a year, you won't be twice as good. You'll be 37 times better. That's not fantasy, it's simple math. But the reverse is true too. If you slip by 1% each day, your skills and focus erode over time. That's why small habits are never neutral, they're always moving. So as Chapter 1 closes, we are left with a quiet urgency. Your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your weight reflects your eating habits. Your clutter reflects your organizing habits. Your knowledge reflects your reading habits. If you want different results, don't chase the outcomes. Change the habits that precede them. And now we stand at the threshold of transformation. You've seen the invisible power of habits. You've learned that massive change isn't built on sudden effort, but steady, silent practice. And you've begun to understand what James Clear ultimately wants for you. Not just better productivity, not quicker wins, but a quiet, consistent alignment between who you are and who you want to become. Welcome to the path of atomic habits. It's not explosive, but unstoppable. One small change at a time. Chapter 2. How your habits shape your identity. Let me tell you something most people never realize about change. We often assume that if we want to transform our lives, the first step is to change our behavior. So we make promises to ourselves. I'm going to work out more. I'll wake up early. I'll quit smoking, or I'll stop procrastinating. We try, we struggle, and despite our efforts, we frequently relapse. The reason for this failure lies deeper than the surface actions. James Clear offers a radically different insight into why lasting change is so difficult.
According to him, real transformation doesn't begin with behavior, it begins with beliefs. In other words, lasting change comes from changing who you believe you are. To understand this, imagine three concentric circles, much like the rings of a tree. The outermost layer is focused on outcomes, what you get, like losing weight, writing a book, or running a marathon. The second layer is about processes, what you do, such as going to the gym, writing daily, or training weekly. The innermost and most powerful layer is identity, what you believe about yourself. I'm a healthy person. I'm a writer. I'm an athlete. Most people work from the outside in. They start with goals, attempt to change behaviors, and hope that eventually their sense of self will change. But Clear flips this model entirely. Clear asserts that true behavior change is identity change. If you believe you're a smoker trying to quit, relapse is likely because your self-image hasn't changed. Similarly, if you see yourself as a procrastinator who occasionally gets things done, you'll keep falling into the same patterns. But when your identity shifts, when you truly believe, I'm not a smoker, I'm a focused person, or I'm a runner, the behavior begins to follow naturally. So where does identity come from? You weren't born thinking you're lazy or undisciplined. These beliefs came from your past experiences, usually small, repeated ones. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. Write one sentence, you're a writer. Practice one chord, you're a guitarist. Meditate for 1 minute, you're someone who values presence. No single action will transform your identity, but every consistent act reinforces it. As James Clear puts it, your habits shape your identity, and your identity shapes your habits. This forms a powerful feedback loop where identity drives habits and habits reinforce identity. To bring this concept down to earth, consider two people trying to quit smoking. When offered a cigarette, the first says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit," while the second replies, "No thanks, I don't smoke." The first still identifies as a smoker resisting temptation. The second has already embraced a new identity. That's the difference between outcome-based and identity-based habits. When your habits align with your identity, there's no inner conflict. You're not resisting your old self, you're living your new one. James Clear offers a simple two-step process for building identity-based habits. First, decide the kind of person you want to be. Second, prove it to yourself with small wins. If you want to be the kind of person who moves every day, start with a walk or a stretch. If you want to prioritize mental clarity, meditate for 60 seconds, turn off notifications, or journal one line. The key is consistency, not perfection. You don't have to run 5 miles to be a runner. You just have to run regularly, even a little, because identity isn't declared, it's earned through action. Every small win is a brick in the foundation of your future self. This approach also solves a deeper issue, motivation. When your actions stem from identity, you don't wake up debating with yourself. You're not asking, should I go to the gym today? You simply know, I'm the kind of person who doesn't skip workouts. This internal alignment eliminates friction. Your actions become expressions of your beliefs, not battles against your impulses. As James Clear reminds us, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. But belief is fragile, especially when shaped by past failures. Many people want to build better habits, but deep down don't believe they can. They carry old stories. I've never been disciplined, I always fall off track, I'm just not that kind of person. These are not truths, past-based narratives. The reality is, you're not bound by your past, you're not doomed to repeat it. You simply haven't cast enough votes for a new version of yourself. Every repeated action is proof. Over time, this proof becomes belief, and that belief becomes identity. James Clear encourages us to ask a powerful question. Who is the type of person that could get the outcome I want? Instead of focusing solely on results, Focus on becoming the kind of person who naturally achieves those results. If you want to lose weight, become someone who doesn't miss workouts. If you want to write a book, become someone who writes every day. If you want to be present with family, become someone who silences distractions at home. It's not about being perfect. It's about creating alignment between your actions and your ideal self. This is where psychology adds something profound, what researchers call self-signaling. We interpret our own actions as evidence of who we are. When you show up, even on the hard days, and follow through even when no one is watching, you begin to believe, I'm that kind of person. Once your identity shifts, your brain wants to stay consistent with that belief. You won't want to betray your new self-image. This creates a powerful internal compass, one that continues guiding you even when motivation fades. Ultimately, James Clear doesn't just teach how to hack habits. He teaches how to become someone new, quietly, deliberately, through repeated actions. As this chapter closes, remember, habits aren't just tools for productivity. They are mirrors reflecting your identity. Every small habit is a vote for the person you want to be. You don't need to start big. You just need to start intentionally. Because when your identity is the foundation, your daily actions align with your future self. Change no longer feels like forcing something unnatural. It feels like coming home.
Chapter 3. How to Build Better Habits in 4 Simple Steps. Think about a habit you have. Maybe it's brushing your teeth, checking your phone, reaching for coffee, or glancing at your reflection before walking out the door. Ease. Actions often happen without conscious thought. You don't pause to decide, you simply respond. And that's where James Clear introduces something remarkable. Whether you realize it or not, every habit, good or bad, follows the same neurological pattern. This chapter is about decoding that invisible script and using it to your advantage. Because when you understand how habits work, you can learn to design them with intention and purpose. Hi, the habit loop. Decades of behavioral psychology, from Pavlov to Skinner, have uncovered a profound truth. Habits are not random. They follow a predictable loop consisting of 4 stages. Cue, the trigger that initiates the behavior. Craving, the motivational force or desire behind it. Response, the behavior you perform. Reward, the benefit that tells your brain, do this again. Here's a simple example to illustrate. You walk into a dark room. You want to see. You flip the light switch. The room lights up. Your brain recognizes the success of the action and stores it, so next time it becomes automatic. Why this loop matters? Understanding this loop is powerful because it gives you control. If you want to build a good habit, you need to create a clear cue, attach it to a strong craving, make the response easy, and ensure the reward feels satisfying. If you want to break a bad habit, you reverse the process. Make the cue invisible, the craving unattractive, the response difficult, and the reward unsatisfying. But James Clear takes this even further by transforming this neurological pattern into a practical tool called the 4 Laws of Behavior Change, a framework that helps anyone trying to form or break a habit. The 4 Laws of Behavior Change. Here are the 4 laws, each corresponding to a stage in the habit loop. Make it obvious. You can't act on what you don't notice. Visibility is the first step. Want to go to the gym? Lay out your clothes the night before. Want to drink more water? Keep a bottle where you can see it. Make it attractive. We're drawn to things that are appealing. Pair your habit with something enjoyable, like listening to your favorite playlist while working out or enjoying a treat after completing a task. Make it easy. Simplicity wins. Reduce the friction. Start small. Want to write a book? Start with 1 sentence. Want to cook healthy? Prep just 1 ingredient. Momentum matters more than intensity at the beginning. Make it satisfying. Your brain needs to feel good about the action. Immediate rewards reinforce behavior. Track your progress visibly, or reward yourself emotionally, whatever helps your brain associate the habit with a positive outcome. Why this works? The science behind the simplicity. This method works because it aligns with how the brain is wired. Your brain loves patterns. It can repeat effortlessly. Reward signals release dopamine, reinforcing the loop and encouraging repetition. The more a behavior is repeated and rewarded, the more automatic it becomes. That's why Clear emphasizes systems over goals. A goal is a moment in time. A system is a continuous process. Habits are the invisible foundation of effective systems. The inverse: how to break a bad habit. To break a habit, simply invert the 4 laws. Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. Want to stop mindless scrolling? Hide your phone or delete the app. Remind yourself of how tired and unproductive you feel afterward. Use blockers. Ask a friend to keep you accountable. This approach isn't about guilt. It's about reshaping your environment to support better decisions. Systems over willpower. Here's one of the most liberating truths from this chapter. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Goals give you direction. Systems make progress possible. And habits are what hold those systems together. Without understanding the structure, you're just guessing. With it, you're designing your future. Practical takeaway: identity plus system equals transformation. Chapter 2 focused on identity, asking who do I want to become. Chapter 3 gives you the system to get there by applying the 4 laws to your daily life. For example, if you want to become someone who writes every day, make it obvious. Put your notebook on your pillow. Make it attractive. Brew your favorite tea before writing. Make it easy. Start with just 1 sentence. Make it satisfying. Track your streak on a calendar or app. This isn't motivation, it's design, and that's the secret. Final thoughts. The real secret to better habits isn't willpower or discipline. It's not about talent or effort alone. It's about understanding the hidden pattern that your brain is already following and using that knowledge to your advantage. When you make habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, you remove resistance and create a structure that supports consistent action. You stop waiting for change and start building it one small step at a time. Chapter 4: The Man Who Didn't Look Right. There's a moment in this chapter, quiet, almost casual, that lingers in your mind long after you've turned the page. James Clear opens with a story that at first glance appears unremarkable. A woman working in a hospital notices something off about a patient. There are no alarms. The monitors don't show anything unusual. All the data looks fine. She says something most others wouldn't. He just didn't look right. And that subtle, almost instinctive feeling saves the man's life. This phenomenon is called situational awareness, the ability to detect subtle changes in your environment and recognize patterns before they develop into problems. In high-stakes fields like medicine, it can be the difference between life and death. But situational awareness isn't only for emergency rooms and operating tables. In everyday life, it marks the boundary between living intentionally and drifting aimlessly. This chapter delves into that razor-thin edge, awareness, and why the ability to notice what is happening around and within you is the foundation of all meaningful habit change. Habits begin with awareness. One of the key truths about habits is that most of them operate beneath our conscious radar. We don't typically make a deliberate decision to open our phones and start scrolling. We don't set a plan to bite our nails or mindlessly check the fridge. These actions just ... happen. And that is the hidden danger of unconscious behavior. James Clear emphasizes a vital point here. You cannot change a habit that you're not even aware of. That's why he puts so much emphasis on developing self-awareness. Before you attempt to shift your habits, build a new routine, or pursue a better version of yourself, you must first see clearly what your current reality looks like. The habit scorecard, bringing the invisible to light. To aid this process of self-discovery, Clear introduces a deceptively simple yet powerful tool, the habit scorecard. The instructions are straightforward. Write down every habit you typically perform in a day, then label each one as positive, negative, or neutral. For example, wake up, drink water, skip breakfast, commute to work, read during lunch, watch YouTube for an hour, brush teeth. That's it. The goal here is not to pass judgment or shame yourself into change. The goal is simply to see yourself more clearly. This exercise allows you to become the observer of your own behavior rather than just the performer of it. And when you finally see the full picture, a powerful shift occurs. You stop blaming yourself in vague, unhelpful ways, telling yourself you're just lazy or undisciplined. Instead, you begin to notice systems. You might realize, oh, I always open TikTok after lunch, or I snack the most when I sit in the living room. These are not random, they are cues. Recognizing cues is the essential first step toward rewiring your habits. Awareness, the hidden superpower. Let's take a step back and reflect on this. Habits shape our lives, but our awareness shapes our habits. James Clear quotes Carl Jung, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That insight echoes through every part of this chapter. Many of the problems we face, procrastination, distraction, overeating, poor sleep, aren't actually failures of discipline or motivation. They're failures of awareness. Awareness is like a form of pattern recognition, and once you recognize a pattern, you can redesign it. How identity ties into awareness. Back in Chapter 2, Clear introduced the concept that true, lasting habit change is tied to identity. In this chapter, that idea takes on deeper meaning. Let's say you've become aware of a habit loop you follow almost every night. Netflix gives snacks, gives scrolling, gives guilt. Most people try to escape this loop through sheer willpower, by deleting apps, throwing out the snacks, or making promises to themselves. But Clear offers a more effective approach. Don't just change the behavior, change your awareness of what the behavior does for you and what it says about your identity. Ask yourself, what is this loop doing for me? What emotions am I feeling when I start it? Who do I believe I am in this moment? Maybe that loop soothes your anxiety. Maybe it numbs feelings of loneliness. Maybe it reinforces a quiet belief that you always give in or never follow through. Suddenly, what looked like a simple bad habit reveals itself as a story you've been telling about who you are. Because habits are not only actions, they are also reflections of identity. And now, we circle back to the story that opened this chapter. The nurse who saved her patient did so not because of data or machines, but because she had developed a deep awareness. She had absorbed countless patterns over the years and sharpened her senses to the point that she felt when something was wrong, even if she couldn't immediately explain why. That's the level of awareness we're working toward. It doesn't happen in a day. It builds slowly through repeated small acts of noticing. The practical tool: implementation intention. Once you become aware of a habit you want to change, the next step is to make that habit intentional. This is where Clear introduces one of the most effective strategies in behavioral psychology: implementation intentions. Instead of vaguely hoping to change, you set a concrete plan using this formula: I will, behavior, at time, in location. Examples: I will do 10 push-ups at 7:30 a.m. in my bedroom. I will write for 15 minutes at 8 p.m. at my desk. It may sound overly simple, but the data is overwhelmingly clear. People who make specific, scheduled plans are dramatically more likely to follow through. Why is that? Because vague intentions get steamrolled by the momentum of daily life. Clear, deliberate plans give shape to our goals. Take the awareness we've developed and channel it into action. Implementation intentions are how awareness becomes transformation. From awareness to accountability. As the chapter draws to a close, there's a subtle yet powerful shift in tone. Once you start seeing your habits clearly, once you name them and plan around them, your entire environment begins to evolve. Your sense of self begins to shift. You are no longer simply reacting to the world. You are designing your life. This isn't about fighting old habits with brute force. It's about replacing confusion with clarity. And that clarity, James Clear reminds us, is so often what separates those who succeed from those who don't. So take a moment as you finish this chapter. Breathe, reflect. Ask yourself, what are your current habits telling you about your identity? Which ones support the person you want to become? Which ones are holding you back? Perhaps most importantly, can you see yourself clearly enough to begin again, this time intentionally? Because awareness is not flashy, it doesn't scream for attention, but in the quiet, steady way that truly matters, it shapes everything.
Chapter 5. The best way to start a new habit. You wake up and reach for your toothbrush. After your shower, you naturally turn toward the kitchen. Following your morning coffee, you might instinctively check your phone. These moments are not random. They're anchors, embedded rhythms in your day that happen almost without conscious thought. What James Clear highlights in this chapter is just how powerful these anchors truly are. With a small shift in design, they can serve as the foundation for any new habit you wish to adopt. This chapter introduces the concept of habit stacking, a method so straightforward and effective that it becomes the silent structure behind lasting personal change. The power of anchoring. Why when matters more than what. Clear begins by pointing out a critical misunderstanding. Most people believe they lack motivation, but in reality, they lack clarity. We often declare our intentions. I want to read more. I want to meditate. I want to eat healthier. But we rarely define when and where these habits will take place. Without specific anchors in time and space, these intentions float unmediated. This is where the concepts of implementation intentions and habit stacking prove essential. Rather than building a habit from nothing, you attach it to something you already do. It's not about inventing a new routine, but about fitting a new action into the structure that already exists, like placing a final piece in a puzzle. Habit stacking, the formula that builds behavior. Clear introduces a powerful yet simple formula. After current habit, I will new habit. That's the entire strategy. Consider the following examples. After I pour my cup of coffee in the morning, I will meditate for 1 minute. After I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into workout clothes. After I brush my teeth, I will write down one thing I'm grateful for. After I sit down to dinner, I will say one kind thing to my partner. This method works because your brain already recognizes and trusts the original cue. You've performed these anchor behaviors hundreds of times. Now, by sliding a new behavior into the sequence, the brain begins to adopt it automatically. Over time, this pairing becomes second nature, which is the essence of habit formation, reliable cues triggering consistent actions. Why timing and location matter more than willpower.
Research cited by Clear emphasizes that the specificity of a cue greatly increases the likelihood that a habit will stick. Compare these two statements. I'll meditate every day versus I'll meditate for 1 minute after I pour my morning coffee at 7 a.m. in the kitchen. The latter is far more actionable. It's not about relying on motivation, it's about reducing friction. When the steps are clear and flow smoothly, your brain will follow through with minimal resistance. This isn't about forcing change, it's about designing it into your life. How to choose the right anchor habit. Not every existing habit is a strong anchor. Some are inconsistent, lack a defined time or place, or are emotionally draining. To build a reliable habit stack, your base habit should be stable, occur in a consistent location, and be emotionally neutral or positive. Examples of ideal anchor habits include waking up, brushing your teeth, making coffee, taking a shower, closing your laptop, turning off the TV, and getting into bed. Once you've identified a strong anchor, simply pair the new habit directly after it. The neuroscience of cues and routine. Beneath the surface, something fascinating is happening in your brain. Every time you respond to a cue with a repeated action, your brain begins forming a chunk of behavior, a neural loop that ties the cue to the action. With each repetition, the connection strengthens and the behavior becomes more automatic. Eventually, the cue alone will trigger the habit. This is how a deliberate choice becomes second nature, requiring less mental energy. Habit stacking accelerates this process by using trusted cues to forge these connections quickly and reliably. Habit stacks and identity. This method also connects deeply with the concept of identity-based habits introduced earlier in the book. Every habit you perform is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. If you stack reading after making coffee, journaling after brushing your teeth, or doing push-ups after turning off your work laptop, you're reinforcing identities like I'm a reader, I'm mindful, or I take care of my health. Habit stacking, then, becomes more than a behavioral tool. It becomes a daily narrative about who you are becoming. Experimenting with your stack, a realistic approach. Clear advises starting small. Don't attempt to stack 10 habits at once. Start with one habit so small it almost feels silly. One push-up, one page, one breath. Once that small stack becomes stable, you can expand. For example, a larger chain might look like this. After I pour my coffee, I will meditate. After I meditate, I will write in my gratitude journal. After I journal, I will open my laptop and begin my most important task. This is a habit chain, a sequence that builds momentum through your day, but the effectiveness of the chain depends on the strength of the first link. Start small, start anchored. Stacking for removal. Using the same technique in reverse. Although the chapter primarily focuses on building new habits, the same method can be used to break undesirable ones. If you tend to scroll social media after breakfast, try inserting a positive replacement. After I finish breakfast, I will take a 5-minute walk. This disrupts the existing cue response loop and replaces it with a healthier alternative. Over time, the craving diminishes as the brain no longer associates the cue with the old behavior. Again, the strategy isn't about forcing change, it's about thoughtful design. Final thoughts. You are what you repeat. As this chapter concludes, Clear emphasizes a central idea. You don't need more willpower, you need better systems. These systems begin with small, intentional, and well-placed cues. A new habit doesn't start with a massive decision. It starts with a simple, actionable formula. After this, I will that. This is how you shape your future, not with dramatic shifts, but with subtle, consistent anchors. So ask yourself, what can you stack today? What steady anchor already exists in your life that could carry a new behavior? Start there. Remember, it's not about intensity, it's about consistency. Because the true architecture of identity is built from tiny habits stacked and repeated with purpose.
Chapter 7. The Secret To. We often admire people who appear to have extraordinary self-control. Whether it's the monk who can resist anger, the athlete who never misses a training session, or the friend who's immune to the allure of junk food, social media, or late-night distractions, they seem to possess a kind of superhuman willpower. But James Clear challenges this traditional view. According to him, disciplined people are not inherently better at resisting temptation. They're just better at avoiding it. Let that idea settle for a moment. The truth is, most people who seem to have great willpower aren't constantly fighting urges. They've simply created a life where those temptations don't regularly arise. This, Clear argues, is the real and often misunderstood secret to self-control. The illusion of willpower. Consider this scenario. There's a plate of warm, inviting donuts on your kitchen counter. You walk past it 10 times a day, and each time you have to mentally tell yourself, don't eat one. That's what most of us think self-control looks like, repeated, deliberate acts of restraint. But this process is exhausting. Even if you manage to resist every time, each instance chips away at your mental energy just a little bit. Now imagine an alternative situation. The donuts aren't in the house at all. You don't see them, so you don't think about them. Suddenly, not eating a donut isn't a test of strength. It's a non-issue. Clear puts it simply. It's easier to practice self-restraint when you don't have to use it. Cue-driven behavior. Why temptation works on us. To truly understand why temptation affects us, we need to revisit the idea of the habit loop. Every habit begins with a cue, something that grabs your attention. Here's the fascinating part. You can't crave what you don't notice. You don't start craving cookies unless you see them. You don't feel the urge to scroll through your phone unless it buzzes or lights up. You don't feel the itch to shop unless you're in a store or scrolling through a shopping app. Cues are what trigger cravings, and those cravings then lead to action. That's why Clear insists that mastering temptation isn't about building ironclad discipline. It's about cutting off the cue before it can spark desire. Remove the cue, remove the temptation. James Clear tells the story of a man who lost over 100 pounds, not through harsh diets or extraordinary willpower, but by systematically removing the triggers that led to poor choices. This man stopped watching cable TV to avoid mindless late-night snacking. He left his phone in another room during meals to remain present and prevent boredom eating. He packed healthy lunches ahead of time so that when lunchtime came, junk food wasn't even an option. Each of these small, intentional changes removed a cue from his environment. He wasn't in a constant battle to resist. He simply created an environment where there was nothing to resist. That's the key principle Clear promotes. Self-control is a short-term strategy. Environment design is a long-term one. The power of inaccessibility. There's a psychological concept called the 20-second rule, which suggests that if something is just 20 seconds harder to access, we tend to do it less. Conversely, if it's 20 seconds easier, we're more likely to do it. Slight delay or ease can be incredibly effective in shaping habits. If you want to curb a bad habit, make it inconvenient, make it less visible, make it even a little bit annoying to access. For example, unplug your TV and put the remote in a drawer. Delete tempting apps or move them to a hidden folder on your phone. Use app blockers or set timers to create a barrier before you can use certain apps. If you're trying to avoid impulse purchases, leave your wallet at home when passing by your favorite stores. The goal is to create just enough friction that your automatic behavior gets disrupted before it can turn into action. People with high self-control rarely use it. One of the most powerful revelations in this chapter is that people with high self-control actually spend less time in situations that test it. They don't succeed because they fight temptation better. They succeed because they avoid the fight altogether. They don't keep junk food in the house. They don't go to bars if they're trying to quit drinking. They don't charge their phones next to their beds. They leave them across the room or in another space entirely. They don't waste time engaging with toxic people. They simply cut them out of their lives.
It's not that these people are stronger, it's that they are more intentional about shaping their surroundings. Social environments matter too. Temptation isn't limited to physical triggers, it's also social. If you're surrounded by people who gossip, constantly scroll their phones, skip workouts, or overspend, you're much more likely to adopt those behaviors yourself. Clear reminds us that one of the most effective ways to build better habits is to join a culture where the behaviors you want to adopt are the norm. Surround yourself with readers if you want to read more. Hang out with runners if you want to stay fit. Connect with creators if you want to build or make things. When your environment aligns with your goals, resisting temptation stops feeling like resistance. It starts feeling like you're really just going with the flow in a better direction. Design greater than discipline. So what's the core message of Chapter 7? You don't need more willpower, you need better systems. You don't beat bad habits by gritting your teeth and trying harder. You beat them by removing the conditions in which they flourish. Clear leaves us with a liberating reminder. You don't have to be the victim of your environment. You can be the architect of it. Avoiding temptation isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You're not weak because you make things easier for yourself. You're smart because you've chosen a strategy that actually works. How to apply this chapter. Now, let's break these insights down into practical steps. First, identify your cues. What triggers your worst habits? Is it a specific time of day, a certain place, a person, a sound, or a phone notification? Once you've identified them, work on removing or replacing those cues. Don't rely on raw resistance. Change what you see, who you're with, and where you spend your time. Use inconvenience to your advantage. Make your bad habits 20 seconds harder to access. Add friction wherever you can. Also, surround yourself with people who support your goals. Join communities that embody the behavior you want to adopt. Let social pressure work in your favor. Finally, celebrate avoidance as a strength. Every time you adjust your environment to sidestep a temptation, you're not just improving your behavior, you're reshaping your identity into someone who makes wise, long-term choices. Final thoughts. We're often quick to blame ourselves when we fail at self-control, but perhaps we've just been playing the wrong game. James Clear doesn't ask us to be heroes, doesn't want us to spend our lives in a constant state of resistance. Instead, he offers a more peaceful, sustainable approach. Build a life where temptation fades into the background. Design your days not around struggle, but around flow. Let your decisions be smooth and effortless because the obstacles are already out of the way. So the next time you admire someone's discipline, pause and ask yourself, are they really stronger than you, or did they just make sure the donuts weren't in the house to begin with? You are not defined by your willpower, you are shaped by your environment. And the good news, you have the power to shape it. Because the highest form of self-control, it's not needing it at all. Chapter 8. How to Make a Habit Irresistible. The second law of behavior change. Make it attractive. Let's pause for a moment. Close your eyes and think of a habit you want to build. Maybe it's exercising daily, eating healthier, reading every night, or practicing gratitude. Now ask yourself, does that habit feel attractive, or does it feel like a chore, a duty, something you should do rather than something you want to do? James Clear points out a vital truth. The more attractive an opportunity, the more likely it is to become habit-forming. So what actually makes something attractive? Here's the thing. Habits don't stick just because they're good for us. They stick because they're emotionally rewarding. They feel good. And for something to feel good, we need to understand how cravings work. Habits are not about the action, they're about the anticipation. This might surprise you. It's the anticipation of a reward, not the fulfillment of it, that gets us to act. Think about it. We don't actually crave the act of checking social media. We crave the feeling of connection, validation, and novelty that comes with it. We don't crave brushing our teeth. We crave the feeling of a clean, fresh mouth. We don't crave opening a workout app. We crave the feeling of energy, pride, or relief that comes afterward. Craving comes before action. It's the emotional part of our brain lighting up, whispering, "This will feel good." So if you want to build better habits, you have to make them emotionally appealing before you even do them. That's where the magic starts. The role of dopamine. Let's dive into brain chemistry briefly. Dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical, but a more accurate term might be the anticipation chemical. When a cue promises a reward, your brain releases dopamine even before the reward actually arrives. For example, when you smell popcorn, hear your phone buzz, or walk into a gym blasting energizing music, your brain is already primed and releasing dopamine. The result? High dopamine levels create high motivation. On the flip side, low dopamine means no action. That's why building a habit isn't about what you do, it's about how much you look forward to doing it. Anticipation is the fuel behind every habit engine. The secret tool, temptation bundling. James Clear introduces a brilliant technique called temptation bundling, based on research by behavioral economist Katie Milkman. The core idea is simple. Pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. For example, only listen to your favorite podcast while exercising. Only watch Netflix while folding laundry. Only drink your favorite coffee after writing a journal entry. Only scroll through Instagram after completing 10 pages of reading. This works because you're reattaching an instant emotional reward, the thing you crave, to a long-term beneficial habit, the thing you're trying to build. The habit becomes emotionally irresistible, not because the action has changed, but because your experience of it has. How culture shapes what we crave. But cravings don't just come from biology, they're deeply shaped by culture. Clear reminds us we tend to imitate habits of three groups: the close, of many, and the powerful. Let's break this down. First, the close. We adopt behaviors from the people we see every day. If your partner meditates, you're more likely to start meditating. If your roommate eats clean, you'll find yourself reaching for healthier meals. Proximity breeds imitation. Then comes the many. Social proof is incredibly powerful. If everyone in your office takes afternoon walks, you'll probably want to join them. If all your friends use a budgeting app, your curiosity will kick in. We crave belonging even more than we crave discipline. Finally, we have the powerful. We mirror the habits of people we admire or aspire to, be it fitness influencers, CEOs, spiritual teachers, authors. Their habits feel attractive, not just because of results, but because those actions represent identity. So if you want to build irresistible habits, place yourself inside a culture where those habits are the norm. Let the environment and people around you carry you forward. Make the habit the reward. James Clear emphasizes a beautiful idea. You can train yourself to crave the habit itself, not just the outcome. How do you do that? By making the experience emotionally rewarding and enjoyable. Track your progress visually. Use habit streaks, journals, or charts. Reward yourself immediately after completing the habit. Even small praise works wonders. Use affirming self-talk, like, "I'm the kind of person who shows up." Keep the tone light. Play music. Add creativity. Use small rituals to signal the habit. Over time, the habit itself becomes the reward, not because of external outcomes, but because it simply feels good to be the kind of person who does that thing. How to make any habit more attractive. James Clear gives us a simple yet powerful formula. Habits equals cue plus craving plus response plus reward. So to make it attractive, your job is to focus on the craving layer. Here's how you do it. Use temptation bundling. Link something you want with something you need. Join a community. Let cultural norms do the heavy lifting for you. Create rituals. Add joy, humor, or music to the experience. Visualize the benefit. Remind yourself of the emotional state that follows the habit. Affirm your identity. Say aloud, "This is who I am." Now, these tweaks might seem small, but that's the point. Tiny shifts in emotion lead to massive long-term traction. Final thoughts. Make the emotion work for you. Here's what this chapter ultimately teaches us. We don't act out of logic, we act out of emotion. Habits stick when they're emotionally magnetic. They don't feel like chores, but like rewards. You don't need more willpower, you need more desire. The best part is you can engineer that desire, can shape it through your environment, community, and emotional experience. So the next time you struggle to build a good habit, don't ask yourself how to be more disciplined. Ask instead, how can I make this feel good before it even happens? Because your brain doesn't care what's good for it. It only cares what feels good. And the beautiful truth, you can design that feeling, can build that craving. And once you do, the habit will follow. Habits begin with emotion. Let yours begin with joy. Because when a habit becomes attractive, it becomes inevitable.
Chapter 9. The Role of Family and Friends in Shaping Your Habits. When we think about changing our habits, we often imagine it as a deeply personal journey, a solo project that requires willpower, discipline, and private determination. It's something we believe happens within us as an internal decision. But James Clear introduces a powerful perspective that challenges this assumption. He writes, "One of the deepest human desires is to belong. This desire to belong to a family, a group of friends, a team at work, or even an online community holds tremendous sway over how we behave. People around us, often without us even realizing it, influence our actions in profound ways. The truth is, you can set out to change your habits alone, can make all the right plans and set clear goals, but if the people closest to you, a tribe you live, work, or socialize with, aren't aligned with that goal, the gravitational pull of wanting to fit in can overpower even the strongest sense of motivation." This chapter is about recognizing and using that invisible force of social influence. It's about understanding how your relationships shape your behavior and how you can turn that force to your advantage. Think about your own habits for a moment. Now ask yourself, where did they come from? You might find that many of your daily routines aren't entirely your own creation. Maybe you drink the same kind of coffee your partner likes. Perhaps your workout habits, or lack of them, mirror those of your closest friends. Your approach to money, whether you save, spend, or shop impulsively, might closely resemble that of your family or social circle. Even the way you speak, dress, and behave is likely influenced by the people you spend the most time with. This isn't just coincidence, it's a product of conformity. James Clear explains, when changing your habits means challenging the tribe, change is unattractive. When changing your habits means fitting in with the tribe, change is very attractive. This is a vital insight. We're social creatures, and we naturally imitate the behaviors of those we admire, love, or depend on. So a smart question to ask ourselves is, how can we find a tribe where the behavior we desire is considered normal? Clear outlines 3 layers of imitation, 3 groups of people whose habits we tend to adopt, often unconsciously. The first group is the close, our family and friends. These individuals have the most powerful influence on us simply because we spend the most time with them. Proximity amplifies their emotional impact. If your friends regularly go to the gym, there's a high chance you'll eventually join in. If your partner eats vegetarian, you might be inspired to try it. If your roommate studies late into the night, you'll likely follow that pattern. You don't need to be told what to do. Just being around them shapes your habits by osmosis. The second group is the many, the influence of social norms. Imagine walking into a quiet restaurant where everyone is whispering. You'll instinctively lower your voice. Think about your first day at a new job when you're unsure of how to behave. What do? You watch everyone else and copy them.
That's how human beings avoid social rejection. We model ourselves on what we see others doing. As James Clear puts it, most days we'd rather be wrong with the crowd than right by ourselves. That's how deeply we're wired for conformity. The third layer is the powerful, those with status. We don't just copy our peers, we also mimic people we look up to. These are the respected, the successful, the wise, the attractive. If someone we admire writes every day, meditates, runs marathons, reads deep books, or journals each morning, we want to be like them, begin to copy their routines, not just because of what they do, but because of who they are. This is the key to forming new habits. It's not just about changing what we do, it's about reshaping who we want to become. This leads to a crucial insight about identity and belonging. Clear writes, when your behavior aligns with the values of your tribe, you feel a sense of belonging. And when a habit fosters that sense of connection, it doesn't feel like a burden anymore. It feels meaningful. It becomes a way of expressing, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is how we live. So take a moment and reflect. Who are the we in your life? What habits define your current tribe? Are those habits moving you closer or further from the person you want to become? Sometimes the biggest change isn't about switching up your daily routine. It's about changing your room, the people you spend your time with. Thankfully, Clear doesn't leave us with just the theory. He gives us practical strategies on how to use the tribe to our advantage. First, he recommends joining a group where your desired behavior is the norm. If you want to write more, join a writing group. If you want to lift weights, go to a gym where people consistently train. If your goal is to save money, surround yourself with frugal individuals. Don't fight against the force of social pressure. Instead, redirect it to support your new identity. Second, create shared goals. People are more likely to stick with habits when they're part of a collective mission. Start challenges with others, invite accountability partners, stay in touch through group chats. Make your personal progress part of a larger story that's shared and supported. Third, celebrate shared victories. When everyone in your group feels proud of a collective achievement, the emotional boost enhances motivation. The tribe reinforces the behavior, not just with logic, but with excitement, celebration, and shared pride. This is the kind of positive reinforcement that habits thrive on. But what happens when your current tribe resists your change? This is a painful and very real situation. Clear is honest about it. Unsurprisingly, you'll find it hard to go against the grain, and sometimes changing your habits means reevaluating your relationships. There are a few things you can do in this situation. You can lead by quiet example, hoping others may follow your lead over time. You can seek new communities and add layers of support without necessarily cutting ties with everyone. And you can strengthen your personal identity, affirming to yourself who you are becoming, even if others don't recognize it yet. Clear delivers one of the most powerful lines in the chapter when he says, "It's hard to change your habits if you never change the group you belong to." That statement may sting, but it's also incredibly empowering because it reminds us that we always have a choice. We can choose the environments we step into. We can choose the people we align with. This chapter isn't about manipulating others or giving in to peer pressure. It's about social design, intentionally placing yourself in environments that make your new identity feel natural, accepted, and even expected. As James Clear emphasizes throughout his book, behavior is driven by belonging. So the next time you aim to change something about yourself, ask, is there a tribe that already lives this way? Can I become part of their world? Because when your new habit becomes the cost of entry into a community you admire, you'll adopt it not reluctantly, but eagerly, consistently, and deeply. And that's when real change happens. That's when transformation becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Because as James Clear concludes, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And often your strongest system is the people around you. Chapter 10. How to Find and Fix the Causes of Your Bad Habits. James Clear opens this chapter with a powerful insight. Bad habits are autocatalytic. The process feeds itself. This means that bad habits often perpetuate themselves in a self-reinforcing loop. Picture this. You feel anxious, so you scroll your phone. Then you feel guilty, which only leads you to scroll more. Or you might feel bored, so you snack. Then you feel sluggish, and again you reach for food. These behaviors are not random, nor are they simply signs of weakness. They are loops, repetitive patterns that have become automatic through reinforcement over time. Understanding this loop is crucial because before we can hope to break it, we must first accept a foundational truth. Every behavior has a reason, even the negative ones. This is why this chapter holds such importance. It reminds us that lasting change doesn't come from brute force or willpower, but from awareness. Clear then revisits a foundational concept in behavioral science, the habit loop. He explains that every habit, whether good or bad, follows a consistent pattern. Cue gives craving, gives response, gives reward. The cue is the trigger, something you experience, whether it's something you see, feel, or go through. The craving is the desire sparked by the cue, usually a desire to change your internal state. The response is the action or habit you perform, and the reward is the feeling of relief or satisfaction you get from it, even if it's only temporary. For instance, let's say you receive a stressful email, cue. You want some relief or distraction, craving. You then open YouTube or reach for junk food, response. You feel momentarily better, reward, though the stress eventually returns. This loop shows us clearly where we can intervene. Clear advises starting with the cue. By identifying and becoming aware of our triggers, we reclaim our power to choose differently. The first actionable step Clear provides is awareness, cultivated through habit reflection. Before changing a bad habit, you need to observe it clearly. That's why he introduces the concept of building a habit awareness muscle with a simple but effective tool, the habit scorecard. Start by writing down your daily habits, beginning from the moment you wake up. For example, wake up, check phone, make coffee, scroll social media, brush teeth, skip breakfast, commute while anxious, arrive late. Then label each habit as good, plus, bad, minus, or neutral, equals. The goal here isn't to judge yourself or try to fix anything right away. It's to observe, to learn to see your habits for what they really are. Over time, especially with destructive or unhealthy habits, repetition makes them invisible. You stop noticing them. They just happen automatically. But the habit scorecard shines a light on these patterns, bringing them back into conscious awareness. Next comes the task of identifying the true cue. Here's where things get particularly insightful. Most bad habits don't begin with the behavior itself. They begin with a feeling. As Clear explains, many of our bad habits are coping mechanisms for dealing with emotions such as stress, boredom, anxiety, or loneliness. You might think your habit is, I smoke when I'm on break, but underneath it's really, I need a moment to decompress and feel in control. Or you may say, I stay up late watching TV, but the deeper truth is, I'm dreading tomorrow and trying to delay it. The key here is to stop asking, why is this behavior bad, and instead ask, what problem is this habit trying to solve, or what emotion is this habit helping me escape, or what deeper need is this behavior pointing to?
These reflective questions often lead to breakthroughs, revealing the emotional architecture behind your habits. Once you've identified the cues and emotional drivers, you can begin to cut bad habits off at the source. This involves making intentional changes to your environment before the craving even begins. Clear shares some of his favorite strategies for this. The first is to make the cue invisible. If you're trying to stop eating junk food, don't leave chips out on the kitchen counter. If you want to stop checking your phone in bed, keep it out of your bedroom. If you want to avoid doom scrolling, log out of apps or hide them. As Clear puts it, it's easier to avoid temptation than to resist it. This is what he calls upstream change. You don't just try to fix the behavior after it started, you alter the conditions that allow it to happen. The second strategy is to redesign your space to make better behaviors more convenient. Keep books by your bed instead of your phone. Place healthy food where it's easily visible and accessible. Put a yoga mat near your workspace. These are small changes, but they help reinforce the identity you want to build by shaping your environment to support that identity. The third strategy is to use something called an implementation intention. This is a powerful technique. Instead of vague goals like, "I'll eat better," you set specific plans like, "If I get stressed, I will take 5 deep breaths and make tea." In doing so, you build an alternate response that still meets the emotional need, but in a healthier, intentional way. Sometimes, though, changing your environment isn't enough, because the cue exists within you and your emotions. Clear challenges us to build emotional resilience, which means learning to deal with your feelings in new ways. This means sitting with boredom instead of reacting to it. It means noticing cravings without immediately responding. It means observing your stress rather than trying to suppress it. And it means naming your emotions rather than acting them out through behaviors. This goes beyond habit work. It becomes inner work. Ultimately, changing habits means changing identity, and that's deeply emotional work. Clear illustrates this with a powerful story of a sales manager who used to eat candy from her desk every afternoon. At first, it seemed like a basic sugar craving, but after some reflection, she realized this happened only after her boss passed by with a harsh look. The candy wasn't just about sugar, it was a comfort against anxiety she couldn't control. Her boss couldn't change her behavior, but she could notice the pattern and build a new one. Taking deep breaths, placing a note of affirmation on her monitor, and making tea instead of grabbing candy. This was a small shift, but it led to a big change. It's a perfect example of the art of noticing instead of fighting, replacing instead of repressing. In his final reflections, Clear reminds us that bad habits are not signs of failure. They are signs of unmet needs. If we want to change them, we must go upstream. To go upstream, we must first get honest. We must pause. We must pause and reflect. The bad habit itself is not the real enemy. It is a messenger. So the next time you catch yourself mindlessly scrolling, biting your nails, procrastinating, or falling back into an old behavior, don't beat yourself up. Instead, gently ask yourself, what am I really needing? What triggered this? Can I meet this need another way? That is the beginning of deep and gentle transformation. Our lives are built in patterns, and the good news is, patterns can be redrawn, one cue at a time, one choice at a time. As Clear concludes, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And those systems always begin with awareness.